This is the AM News, and of course, let's start from Parliament, because the opposition NDC in Parliament is readying itself for a fight in Parliament, insisting they are the majority in the House. On Thursday, Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbin declared 4 seats vacant that effectively made the NDC caucus the majority. But barely 24 hours after that, the Supreme Court stayed the execution of that declaration. Speaking at a news conference in Parliament, Dr. Ato Forson insisted the Speaker had not done anything wrong and they will resist any attempt to strip them of the majority status. Our Parliamentary Affairs correspondent, Kweku Asante, has the rest of the story.
On Thursday, Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbin delivered a ruling, or what some have said was a declaration, that effectively made the NDC group in Parliament the majority caucus in the House. But 24 hours after that, the Supreme Court ruled to stay the execution of that ruling by the Speaker of Parliament. The NDC MPs, however, say that the Speaker of Parliament did no wrong and they will resist any plan to push them back into the minority.
For the avoidance of doubt, the Speaker's decisions to declare the 4-seat vacant is lawful exercise of his responsibilities derived from the 1992 Constitution and the Standing Orders of Parliament. The effect of the Speaker's declaration is that currently we no longer have an independent member of Parliament. The MPP has 135 members of Parliament only. The NDC has 136 members of Parliament, and there is no second Deputy Speaker of Parliament. We will jealously protect our new majority status and will not bow, retreat, nor surrender our lawfully earned status.
Dr. Ato Forson, who is the NDC leader in Parliament, has been announcing the plans that the NDC group have if they stay in the majority, including to repeal the e-levy and the betting tax.
It is indeed true that we will use our new majority numbers to benefit Ghanaians by introducing private members' bill to remove the e-levy and to reduce the suffering of the people of Ghana. Yes. It is also true that we will use our new majority to remove the betting tax and other nuisance taxes. Yes. We stand with him, pledge our support, and urge him to protect the dignity and sanctity of the Parliament of Ghana. In the same vein, we call on Ghanaians to stand by the Speaker and resist oppressors' rule. From day one, we have not reneged on our fight for the people of Ghana.
When asked specifically about this Supreme Court ruling, Mahama Yarga, the NDC MP for Boku Central, says, until and unless the Speaker of Parliament comes to the floor and informs them that that is the new course of action, they will still consider themselves as the majority.
We are not aware of any law or any constitutional provision that enables anybody to suspend a decision of the Speaker in Parliament properly constituted. Be that as it may, we as parliamentarians act on the basis of communication coming to us from the Speaker. We don't hear things in the news and act on them, or cite copies of records of proceedings in any court on social media and act on them. We act on the basis of communication coming to us from the Right Honorable Speaker. And if that communication says we should walk into the sea, we walk into the sea, because we listen only to the Speaker and nobody else in relation to the integrity, the legality, and the appropriateness of what has happened in the chamber of Parliament.
On Tuesday, the House is set to resume after it adjourned last Thursday, and it's going to be a showdown because both sides are now carrying themselves as the majority in Parliament. But of course, the majority can't only be one side, and it is only one side that can sit on the right-hand side of the Speaker. But with both the NDC and the NPP pushing themselves onto that right side, it is left to be seen what exactly is going to happen then, with even claims now from the NDC MPs that certain soldiers are set to be deployed to the precincts of Parliament on Tuesday when the House resumes. Reporting for Joy News, Kweku Asante, Parliament House, Accra.
Revolution has come to stay. Revo, revo, revo.
Let's stay on this matter because Associate Law Professor and Head of the Law, Humanities and Social Sciences Department at Ashesi University, Dr. Mensah Bonsu, has urged the NDC members of Parliament to challenge the Supreme Court's ruling if they have any reservations. According to Dr. Mensah Bonsu, the Supreme Court exists to offer finality and correct errors, and dissenting parties should pursue a supervisory order when necessary. She made these comments on Newsfile.
When a person who has a duty exercises their duty and you disagree with it, I think you go for a supervisory order. You apply for a certiorari or mandamus or as applicable, and that's on notice. So I'm a little stumped what the next step should be, to be honest. And again, the fact that the order is until the matter is determined, as opposed to the 10 days that ex parte applications are supposed to get. Perhaps the minority would like to request the court to review that order and bring it in compliance with the
I get it that you...
I mean, the whole point in a judicial system is to create some finality to actions. So if everybody is to take their own interpretation as correct and disregard the courts, we'll be back in a state of nature, to be honest. And so that one of the key reasons why separation of powers has been proposed as a useful way to run a country is the principle of institutional settlement, which is a principle about finality, right? So Waldron argues that it's not really that this is the institution that will get the answer right all the time, or even that this particular answer is right. It is that this particular answer is final and we can respond to that. So we have a methodology for speaking to our court when we think our court is wrong. That's the methodology you adopt. You don't then say, well, I think they're wrong, so I won't do it. Because when you do that, what we're saying is that every time there's a decision, people should judge whether that decision ought to be obeyed or not, in which case, what's the point in the court? Why don't we just let the people figure it out in the first place and then decide what they will do and fight if they're wrong? If they can't agree, then they should fight, and then the strongest should win. That's the state of affairs that we chose to leave when we decided to set up a constitutional government. So if it is wrong, use the methodology to correct it.
The question some lawyers are asking...
Parliament should not be an institution that sets the example to the citizenry about how to treat the Supreme Court.
Still on the matter, MP for Bolgatanga East, Dominic Ayene, agrees with Dr. Mensah Bonsu that NDC MPs should follow legal procedures. However, he points out that while the court has the final say on disputes or ambiguities concerning legal provisions, it is not the sole authority on interpreting the Constitution.
I think she's right in respect of how we proceed. Habib had pointed out the distinction between politics, the conduct of politics in the House and the settlement of legal matters, right? In settling this legal matter, the best will be for Mr. Speaker's lawyers to apply to set aside, to vacate the order of stay, okay?
This was unanimous, so.
Yes, why not? 5. But if legal argument is brought to the attention of the court, that the court was wrong, that it erred in granting the stay, I think that the court, should be minded to reverse itself.
So it is possible that by Monday when we wake up, the lawyers for the Speaker would have filed a process to vacate this order. And they would have also filed a stay of execution of the
Supreme Court order.
And then the status quo ante will remain. That the Speaker's orders will be worked
that is what I expect. Okay, and I actually talked with Mr. Speaker's lawyer, not today, but I think yesterday in the afternoon. At the time that I was speaking to him, he hadn't had the full complement of even the writ and the statement of case as well as the ruling. But I'm sure by now he would have them and he will work over the weekend to be able to file those things. So I agree with her that there is some level of interpretation of the Constitution at the level of the administrative state.
Right.
But when there is ambiguity and there is a dispute as to the meaning and the implications of that provision, it is the Supreme Court that has the final word.
That's right.
So the fact that it has the final word doesn't mean that it has exclusive power to interpret the Constitution.
Now, away from Parliament and the fallout from the Speaker's ruling, Executive Director of the Peasants Farmers Association of Ghana, Bismarck Owusu-Nortey, has warned that if decisive action is not taken, the country will face a generational food crisis. He stated that illegal mining is having a significant impact on agricultural production, taking over farmlands, contaminating water bodies, and leading to the loss of a majority of the youth workforce to this illegal activity. He reiterated calls for the government to declare a state of emergency on illegal mining to restore order in the sector. Bismarck Owusu-Nortey made the call in Wa during the celebration of World Food Day.
As part of the celebration of the World Food Day in the Upper West region, a one-day sensitization workshop was held for major stakeholders in the agriculture production sector. It is aimed at sensitizing them on the effect of illegal mining, climate change, and genetically modified organisms on agriculture production in the country. Executive Director of Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana, Bismarck Owusu-Nortey, averred that the effects of illegal mining is having a huge toll on agriculture, which has taken over farmlands, water bodies, and above all, majority of the youth workforce. He warned that if decisive action is not taken, the country will face the national food crisis. He reiterated calls made to government to declare a state of emergency to bring sanity to the mining sector.
We call on government to still abide by our demands to call for a state of emergency on illegal mining. We still stand by it, even though government has announced some measures. We feel those measures are not sustainable enough, because as I'm speaking to you, the illegal miners are still out there in the water bodies, on the farmlands, causing havoc. So it's important for the state to declare a state of emergency to ensure that we can temporarily halt the process, clear all the mess we've created, reclaim our lands, reclaim our farmlands, and ensure that we have a good food system.
Bismarck Owusu-Nortey also spoke about the effects of climate change and genetically modified organisms.
Apart from government putting in place measures to mitigate the effect on farmers, we are also doing our part by ensuring that farmers also practice sustainable farming practices. And one of the key practices that we are promoting is agroecology and circular economy. And we feel that if farmers are able to adapt to climate change by adopting some key agroecological practices, like minimum tillage, cover cropping, and a couple of other practices, they can be able to protect themselves from the harsh realities of climate change.
Deputy Director of the Center for Indigenous Knowledge and Organizational Development, CICOD, Daniel Bunoku, noted that though the issue of illegal mining is on the front burner, he sees the effect of the introduction and proliferation of genetically modified organisms and biotechnology, which serves as a means through which the former is carried out. He called on the people to advocate for policies that protect farmers' rights, support agroecological practices, and reject the corporate state takeover of our foods.
We face a very serious existential threat, especially where we have seen in recent times a lot of corporate pressure towards the takeover of the seed and food system globally. And once we lose our food, we've lost our identity, we've lost our culture, and we've lost our heritage. So while we share the solidarity with government, we solidarize with all the people who are fighting illegal mining and galamsey, we would encourage people to avert their minds to a much bigger existential threat that we face, which is the introduction or the proliferation of genetically modified organisms and biotechnology, which is the means through which all of these things are brought to us on our table.
Action Aid Ghana Head of Programs, Campaigns and Innovation, Justin Bayo, calls for a shift in the financing of fossil fuels and industrial agriculture to agroecology and food sovereignty.
Too much money, and I mean too much money, is going to the drivers of climate change, and too little is going to the solutions. This year is key to fixing and redirecting private, public, and climate finance flows that are failing the planet. Re-evaluating our financial priorities has never been more urgent in the face of the escalating climate change issues, biodiversity loss, and social inequality.
Reporting for Dway News, Rafik Salam. Wow.
Now to the dry spell that hits the northern region. A scientist at the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, that is CSIR, Crop Research Institute in Kumasi, Dr. Agbesi Keteku, has affirmed that farmers in the 5 communities that they were working with will be able to meet their crop targets despite the dry spell that hits the northern region. He said farmers who applied smart seed, soil and water management practices, among other techniques, are expecting a good harvest, while some have already harvested their crops. There was a prolonged dry spell that affected several regions in the country, including the northern region, raising fears of a potential food shortage. However, speaking to Joy News during a donation of simple farm machinery to farmer groups, Dr. Agbesi Keteku stated that farmers in their project area are experiencing a good yield.
The Alliance of Biodiversity International and International Center for Tropical Agriculture, in partnership with the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, Crop Research Institute, Kumasi, is working in 5 communities in the Kumbungu district of the northern region. The Accra project is being implemented in Balingpiang, Dakbahe, Kukuo, Banjogo, and Behago communities. Farmers are being taught on how to use smart agricultural information, seed, fertilizer, among others, for good yield. Speaking at a donation of farm machinery to farmer groups at Kunkulung, Dr. Agbesi Keteku said, because the seeds are early maturing, the farmers were able to escape the dry spell.
This year, we've experienced major drought during the rainy season. And per our research, the seeds we have introduced to the farmers are climate smart, first because they are early maturing. The maize variety is early maturing, Opebro, the cowpea variety is early maturing, and the groundnut variety is also early maturing. So this enables the farmers to escape the drought. And they are also drought tolerant, so that in case of little moisture, the farmer can still get some harvest. There will not be total crop lost. So in these 5 communities we've been working in since last year, this year the farmers were able to still harvest something, although they did not get the full economic yield, but they got the targets they were expecting.
The Management Information System Officer at the Kumbungu District Agricultural Department, Abdul Karim Yakubu, appealed that more communities be roped onto the project.
We are encouraging Accra to increase the number of communities in the district and at least cover some other districts in the northern region in particular and the country at large, so that our farmers will not always sacrifice for nothing at the end of the day. And again, I want to assure our farmers that the machines are friendly, and so women can use it. They are very simple. You need not to push hard in order for it to do the planting for you.
A farmer, Al-Hassan Abdul Wahab, said the knowledge they have acquired has helped a lot. He said even though there was a dry spell, they are harvesting good yield.
The knowledge we've been given from the Accra project, through that scientific knowledge, we use it in our farms, and by the grace of Almighty Allah, we will cultivate more in our farms. For us, we compare it to the past years. We can see that this year our yield will be very high. Even as part of this drought, our yield will be very high.
Let's do some health stories. The Fertility Society of Ghana is calling for the early enactment of the Assisted Reproductive Technology Regulation Bill aimed at addressing infertility and its care in Ghana. Infertility treatment, including vitro fertilization, that is the IVF in Ghana, are plagued by concerns over safety, a shortage of specialists, high costs, and lack of education and access. The regulatory bill, currently with the Attorney General's Department, will ensure safer practices and stricter quality controls in fertility treatments.
Childless women can be physically, verbally, and psychologically abused, especially in developing countries like Ghana. Some of them go every extent to find remedy to their predicament due to family and societal pressures. This has influenced the emergence of assisted reproductive technologies and procedures to provide surgical help to infertile couples. The Fertility Society of Ghana is seeking to minimize complications and risk through an assisted reproductive technology regulation bill. President of the Fertility Society of Ghana, Dr. Rudolph Agagigba, says the bill, once enacted, will provide a framework to enhance the safety and efficacy of fertility care across the country.
We have not finished the regulation yet. Every professional body has to be regulated so that the practice doesn't go wayward. Okay, make sure that people get right care without complications. So we have started that process, and very soon, hopefully, we will send a bill to Parliament for that to pass into law, so that if you say, for instance, don't put, let's say, more than 2 embryos, and a doctor puts more than 2 embryos into a woman, and the woman becomes pregnant with triplets, and then we'll take that hospital on. If we see that some particular complications are coming from a particular hospital, then we'll have to investigate. If you found that you are operating against the law, the regulation, then you can be taken on. That is one area that we are looking at. I mentioned training. Prior to
the president was speaking on the 7th Annual General and Scientific Conference in Kumasi on the theme Safety of ART Therapies in Ghana, Role of Stakeholders. Currently, there are over 30 assisted conception centers with locations in Accra, Tema, Kumasi, and Takoradi. The ART techniques are still not available to majority of infertile couples because of its accessibility. The society is calling for more public fertility centers and the coverage of fertility treatment by the National Health Insurance Scheme. Dr. Adam Hiaji is the immediate past president of the Fertility Society of Ghana.
Access is still a problem, because currently all the assisted reproductive centers or the IVF centers are in the private sectors, in the private hospitals, because the government is focusing on treating more infectious diseases and trying to make basic health available to the ordinary Ghanaian. And then after that, we'll move forward to having IVF centers in the public centers. But what FESOC is requesting is that at least some of the investigations should be covered by the National Health Agency scheme, insurance scheme, National Health Insurance Scheme. Because now WHO, which is the World Health Organization, says that infertility is a disease.
Reporting for Joy News, my name is Clinton Yeboah.
Now, the Ministry of Trade and Industry, in collaboration with the Ghana Enterprises Agency, has initiated efforts to empower women to overcome gender-related challenges and access to entrepreneurial opportunities. At a forum with representatives from academia, industry, and government agencies, the ministry discussed strategies to equip women with the tools and resources needed to start their own businesses. The initiative, Business in the Box, aims to provide funding and support to women, particularly those in disadvantaged groups, to ensure their active participation in Ghana's economy. Here's more.
The Trade Ministry put together the conference to brainstorm ways and means to ensure that women are empowered. The ministry says its hope is to rise above gendered challenges and take advantage of various opportunities. Leveraging on what they call business in the box, they believe that would help them equip the women with various tools and funding to enable them start their own businesses. Professor Sewa Bene Mensah is an associate professor of entrepreneurship at the University of Cape Coast.
And what the GA is trying to do is to equip women with various tools, some kind of funding to start their own businesses and make a living right? It's not only about funding. And for us in academia, most often we even rank funding among the least, causes of women's inability to pursue entrepreneurship. Right? We would rather place on top of the list training, right, access to information, and then even the word empowerment, to empower them psychologically, socially, to go all out, that you can make it.
Coordinator at the Regional Coordinating Council, Blaise Kwame Dake, enumerated some of the challenges in the sector that hinder the sector's growth.
However, despite its importance, the sector faces considerable challenges, particularly in areas such as financing, training, and policy support. To unlock the full potential of MSMEs, we must work together to create an environment where these businesses can thrive, innovate, and compete both locally and globally.
Central Regional Chairman of GUTA, Paul Kofi McCarthy, and the Western Regional Chairperson for GUTA, Albi Abebu, have been speaking to the media.
You can see that the tax system too is also worrying them. Let's say somebody will start its business, the private sectors, they have more of them have the skills, but because of the tax that comes to them all the time, it also, I take them off from the business. So what we are trying to tell the government is, if anything to go by, they should be giving some tax amnesty here and there, so that it will cushion them to, be in the business for a very long time.
If you look at the MSME space, it dominates in terms of the total number of, or the percentage of employment that is offered, about 92% or so. Women-owned businesses constitute a far lesser percentage of that greater aggregate. It's around between 40 and 42%. And so there's the need to deliberately have policy address some of these challenges. And I think that there are a number of agencies, even sectors, private sector organizations, that all aim to have some of these things sorted out. But in terms of a forum like this, it grants the opportunity to align views, to align interventions, and then have one framework to address the challenges.
The Ministry of Trade and Industry says it is seeking to help empower those in disadvantaged brackets by empowering them to be productive.
Coming up next is Business Updates with Benjamin Akakpo.
Welcome to our Business Updates for the morning. And our first story. Economist Professor Lord Menta has impressed on Parliament to immediately resort to the negotiating table and iron out differences to prevent the potential threat to fresh disbursements as well as spending approvals for next year. His caution comes on the Supreme Court's on the back of the Supreme Court's pronouncement of a stay of execution on Speaker Alban Bagmin's ruling, which declared 4 parliamentary seats vacant. Speaking to Joy Business on the ramifications of these developments on Ghana's economic recovery process, Professor Mensah maintained both sides of the divide had to compromise to ensure government's business was not affected.
I think from where I sit, it depends on, the parliament's posture. I think the parliament represents the people, and they should have the people at heart rather than, tapping their shoulders and getting to know, who becomes the majority leader or minority leader. But from where I sit, I'm not constitution expert, but I can tell you that what is right is right. What the Constitution says is what we have to go with. And so those who are losing, their seat, to relinquish their majority position in Parliament should be ready to do that. And then those who are taking up the majority position should be, as fast as possible, reconstitute their committees here and there, so that we get business running for the country, because we cannot afford to, get another hold up as a result of, Parliament, composition uncertainty. And, this is part of political risk, which we cannot overlook when it comes to, financial management. So, public financial management. So, from where I sit, I think they just have to sit up.
Well, now the director of the African Coconut Group, Kweku Boateng, has called on business leaders to explore opportunities in the coconut industry, citing its vast potential as a sustainable investment option. Speaking to Joy Business ahead of the 2024 installment of the International Coconut Festival Ghana, Mr. Boateng emphasized that investing in coconut production and processing offered numerous benefits, including high returns on investment and job opportunities.
Coconut is a versatile crop. It is seen in the pharmaceutical industry, the food and beverage industry, the cosmetic industry, name them, biodiesel, eco-friendly crop. So coconut is a zero-waste crop. In the value chain, we're talking about 5 value chains of coconuts: processors, exporters, vendors, farmers, and even nursery operators. This gives wide opportunity for employment. And currently, Ghana is lying 12th in the world and #1 in Africa, with an annual production of 504,000 metric tons. What has attributed to this? Coconut is a versatile crop. Every part of coconut is money. It's a zero-waste crop. Cocoa pit, which serves as a medium for greenhouse agriculture, comes from the coconut husk. This same husk can be turned by adding value to produce mats and mattresses. When it comes to charcoal, the coconut shell, it can be burned to produce charcoal, which is eco-friendly. So it is important for constant advocacy of coconut as a cash crop to increase production so that the various value-added products can work. When we are able to do this, over 1 million people can be employed in the sector, because currently, just at the production level, about 350,000 people, whether direct or indirect jobs, gain a source of livelihood from coconut.
And on that cash crop note, we cap off business, handing over back to Sweetie Abochi.
Thank you, Benjamin. So let's get ready for news review segment. Nana Yachapim Jantwa, former General Secretary of the CPP, and Dr. Paul Dankwa, government spokesperson on governance and security, are joining us to review the news stories captured in the papers. We're back in a bit.